Subscribe to this podcast to get exclusive access to the after show Shooting the Breeze. So today we are honored to have Robert Andrew Wagner of the Little Wretches, and he's a musician. It'll be really interesting to hear about musicians and how God kind of plays a role in some of these musicians' lives. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, Robert?
Oh no! Well, see, those of you who can see me know that I've been around for a little while. So it really depends on how broad you want the camera to be, or how narrow how closely you want to zoom in. But I'm a working class product of immigrants who came to the United States a couple of generations ago for opportunity, and they believed that education was the way you transformed yourself. Education in the United States would be the great equalizer and create opportunity where we would be as good as anybody else who walked the earth. We would repeat the mantra our mother gave us: I am better than no one and no one is better than me. And we weren't allowed to say I can't. We would have to say I'll try. And we were just raised with the notion that we're supposed to live purposeful, meaningful lives and do something with the talents we've been given. And that each of us has a talent, each of us has a purpose. And that once you know what it is, you go for it with all your might. So I'm relatively well educated. In the words of Robert Frost, I guess I've always chosen the path less traveled. And as far as being a writer, I chose to write songs and to be a performing songwriter because I want to try to communicate with people who don't already know what I know, and people who might not come across what I have to say elsewhere. So, I want to be playing in front of live audiences. I'm basically a teacher. I teach through stories and I tell stories through songs. And the rest, listen to my songs and you can hear all the gory details.
Yeah, I think that is a very important message to kind of follow your dream, where it wants, like where you can go with it, and how much you can accomplish when you do follow that dream. So what is God currently doing in your life right now?
Well, when I was in high school, my like the first girl that I thought I could ever realistically date moved away and sent me a Bible in the mail. And I still have that Bible. And the scripture that she wrote on the little bookmark was, "Lean not on thy own understanding." And, I'm a relatively intelligent person, and, I'm a problem solver and I'm a thinker. And, there have been times where I thought, I can say God has more important things to worry about. He doesn't need to worry about me. I can take care of myself. And I think God has. Sometimes my prayer is, if there's, I'm not good at taking hints. Lord, if there's something you want me to do, open the door so wide and push me through it that I can't miss it. And if there's something you don't want to be doing, slam the door violently in my face so that I can't go any further.
I can say the
And
same
where I
thing.
am right now, I'm in a kind of a netherworld. I've been living out in the Philadelphia area for about 11 years, but I'm a native Pittsburgher. And back in December, I decided that, renting a place to live is a waste of money. It's just every month my money goes somewhere else. It would be better if I was a homeowner, and I decided to start looking for a house. And looking at these homes, why would I want to live here? I don't want to live here. I feel no connection to this place. It's just a pile of bricks to me, and they're asking more money than I ever thought I'd spend. And if you look at the room around me right now, I've been living for a few months in an Airbnb, and I have the room next to the bathroom, so I have no kitchen. I have a coffee maker, and most of my stuff, I have all my guitars here, but most of my stuff is in a storage locker. And God's calling me back to Pittsburgh, so I'm not really sure. I think as of July 1st, I'll be back in Western Pennsylvania, and still, my mission has been most of my adult life as far as a performing songwriter. I want to wake up in the morning thinking about where I'm playing today, thinking about who I'm playing for. And COVID, this last 2 years, has been kind of weird because it shut down the performing side. It put everything online, and now things are just again beginning to open up to the live performance. But a lot of venues plan 2 years in advance. So, like I have a nice gig booked in November of 2023, and I have a hard time thinking that far ahead. All I know is I have a lifelong catalog of really incredible stories to tell and songs to play, and looking for opportunities to play them. Wherever. My answer is always yes. My answer is never no, unless I can't physically make it. So that's
So what was that
what's
moment?
God doing for me. God's telling me, depend on me. Don't worry about anything else. Lilies of the field and all that.
Yeah. So what was that moment of faith for you? Like, when did you first come to Christ?
See, that's a hard question for me to answer, because I listen to a lot of Christian podcasts and radio, and a lot of people can point to a specific moment, and they talk about, oh, can you lose your salvation once you've attained it? And I can say for me, I've always had, from the time I was a toddler, I've always had a prayer life. I've always known the Lord and had a conversation with the Lord. And there have been times when I've slid away, and like every coward who faces a crisis, in those moments of crisis, you come crawling back and say, Lord, forgive me. I know I forgot about you. I know I have been disloyal and unfaithful, but I promise, deliver me from this, and I'll stick with you So when I was a little kid, I just remember running around the house with my cousins. I had back in my generation, you didn't go to daycare. You played. The lady next door watched you, or your aunt watched you, or your grandparents watched you, and there were always other kids to play with. And I had some cousins who were just a little bit older than me, and they told me God always was and always will be. And if they said it, I needed no convincing. It just made sense to me. God knows what you're thinking. You can't lie to God. And we would run around the house telling our parents that in case they didn't know. So I always had that. And my parents were working class Catholics. They sent us to Catholic elementary school, and so in the Catholic Church, there's sacraments that you go through, and then you kind of formally join the church. I think they wait till you're in the 8th grade. You make your confirmation, and I was always, in my heart, no matter what else was happening around me, I kind of knew that God favored me. I was one of His people, and but when I went to college, that apparently took me about 5 minutes to be politicized and radicalized. And if you would have asked me when I was 19 years old, I would have told you I'm an atheist. People who believe in God are idiots. Everything you've been taught is a lie, and the path to the truth is Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong thought. And again, God has a way of smacking you back to reality. And I got a rare form of cancer, and went the night before my big surgery. I'm thinking, wow, dang, I've been telling everybody for a couple of years that I'm an atheist, and here it is. I might be going to sleep for the last time here. I might not wake up. God, if to tell you the truth, I knew that I was going to live. It wasn't. It was beyond just hope. It was like I'm gonna come through this, and when I do, I will never do anything that I don't believe in. I will never say anything I don't believe in. I will be invulnerable to peer pressure, and everybody else, they can follow the crowd. They can go the easy way. I will never take the easy way out, even if I'm the only one, even if it's just between me and God, even if God is the only person who understands that I'm doing His will. If I know His will, that's what I'm going to do. Now, I haven't succeeded 100% of the time, but I've been pretty true. I try, and I'm not a quitter. So that I, and various other times, I've had some crises where the unexpected, the smack comes along and said, you thought you were going somewhere, but guess what? There's another plan. And I had one person say, "Wow, I listened to your life story, and it reminds me of Job. You've had so many things." And I'm like, "Yeah, but Job. May I maintain my faith like Job did." One of the things I talked about earlier, how I was raised. We were taught that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. There will be ordeals, there will be tests, and you're supposed to learn from them.
Exactly.
Everything that happens for a good reason. And I always remind myself, if I woke up this morning, because God could have taken me yesterday, He could have taken me last night. If I woke up this morning, there's still work for me to do. May I know what it is, and may I do it with all my strength.
Exactly. And I think that's again a very important message for people to learn, that we go through trials and we need to grow and become stronger because of it. What inspired you to start the Little Wretches?
Well, I started first performing in a band. I knew I could write. How you get reinforcement for things that you do. Somewhere along the line, I learned that I had a gift for the power of the word, and with my writing, I could make people stop what they were doing and pay attention. I could use words to harness some power, but I was kind of resolved to having to be, a writer, a poet, or a journalist, something like that. I always wanted to be a performer in a band, but I didn't know anybody who did that. It just didn't seem feasible. And then in college, the people that I studied under and was associated with were part of the punk rock scene, and back then, punk rock was a very open-ended thing. We think now of people with mohawks and torn clothes and safety pins in their lips and so on, but it was really a pretty open community that was accepting of anything. Of course, it valued attempts at being original, but none of us were all that original. So my roommate and after it was clear that I was going to live through my cancer treatments, we decided to start a band, and that band was called No Shelter, and that was almost like an apprenticeship where you're learning what you're good at, how to do this thing. So when we first started, I didn't even know how to put a microphone stand together. Knew absolutely nothing. So we had a couple of years of an apprenticeship, and once I kind of understood, I'm a storyteller. I tell my stories with songs, and I have to present. In anything, the audience can handle anything, but every story needs a context. Every picture needs a frame. So I started the Little Wretches with my little brother Chucky, who was a violin player, with the idea that this is going to be the vehicle for my stories and my songs. And when we first started out, just had some friends helping me out, me and my brother. We had very clear musical ideas of what needed to be there, and we had some really talented people who were willing to donate their spirit and their heart and their effort and their blood, sweat, and tears, donate that to my thing to help me get what I was doing off the ground. And the name, the Little Wretches, blessed are the meek. It's the spirit. Yeah, I hope when people hear the name of the band, the Little Wretches, they think of the Beatitudes, or they think of Amazing Grace, the hymn. I hope that's what comes to mind.
So, what about your album? Undesirables and Anarchists. Tell me about a little bit about how that album came about and what it's about.
Well, over for one, many of the songs on that album had been road tested. We had a very well, when I started. Uh, we were kind of a rickety outsider group that could play at theater openings and bookstore openings and stuff like that, but we weren't a mainstream group. But we got enough we generated enough enthusiasm that we wanted to be more mainstream because we thought we could command a bigger audience and we could compete in the marketplace if we were more of a rock band. So we became more of a rock band, and in some ways became less original. But over the years, we had a few opportunities to break through to greater success, and those things didn't materialize. But by the time we recorded Undesirables and Anarchists, many of those songs were no longer new songs. They were road tested. We had experience in the studio. We knew exactly how to record, how to approach. So we were very well rehearsed, very hot. And the engineer that we worked with, he knew as soon as he heard us, I know what you're trying to do. If you can record this stuff without wearing headphones, if you could just set up in the room like you're setting up for a gig, don't worry about the vocals, lay the vocals down later. But if you can play all the instruments live in the room together, by the time you're done setting up, I'll be ready to record you. And we just basically played what was kind of like our greatest live hits at the time, plus a couple of new ones. And it was just it just clicked instantly. There's not a two taker on that album. You'll hear about bands that spend 6 months working on a song. Now we might have spent 6 years working on the songs, performing them live in little dive clubs around the country, but the actual recording, we nailed them all first attempt. That's a miracle. Nobody does that. And some of the songs, the imagery, and there's a story behind every line of every song. Some of the songs are pretty cinematic. If you could do it, I'm not an essayist, I'm a songwriter, so there's a certain amount of, we're throwing the imagery out there, and hopefully it's compelling enough that people will think about it and try to make sense of it and process it themselves. But it's not like we're trying to deliver a message that could be put in a slogan where what we have to say is best said through those songs, and to really get the message you have to listen to them. But it all kind of revolves around that theme of blessed are the meek, blessed are the poor in spirit. That's the Little Wretches thing. You want to know about the actual title of the album, Undesirables and Anarchists?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, when I mentioned, I when I was in college, I had cancer, and my roommate, who I started No Shelter with, visited me every single day I was in the hospital, and I had a Marxist economics professor, believe it or not, who my hospital room was between his office on campus and his home. So every day when he was leaving campus, he stopped off and visited me in my hospital room. And cool. Because he had been a radical at a certain point. Well, he was still. He died a radical, but he sent away for his FBI file, under the Freedom of Information Act, and I guess it took maybe over a year before he got it. But when he got his FBI file, there were huge sections which were blacked out and redacted, so he had no idea what was in there, just pages blacked out. But among the things he said that were in his file were like dinner conversations, like he'd been in a restaurant having dinner with friends. So the question is, was his table bugged, or were some of his friends spying on him?
Yeah,
so the line of the song is, all of my friends are on somebody's list of undesirables and anarchists. It's not even safe to admit that you're one of my friends. That's what I was thinking of when I wrote that line, and when I was thinking of what should we call this album? those, who are we surrounded by in the world of the Little Wretches? People that nobody else wants to associate with, and the ungovernable deplorables of the world. Now, I'm not saying that it's good to be an anarchist, but that seems to be some of the people that are attracted to our world do have problems with authority.
Yeah.
And generally people who have problems with authority, when you trace back to the roots, what they really have a problem is a problem with God. And one of the things that separates me from other Christian artists, a lot of Christian artists, I've been known to quote a little bit of scripture too, but I'm like Jacob. We wrestle with God. We argue with God. We fight with God. We contest with God. God always wins. But I'm not part of that. Oh, God has made my life perfect thing. Look, life is a struggle, and like I've gone to churches, in like the suburbs of Pittsburgh, where you go up, and there's not a speck of dirt on any of the cars, and all these expensive shiny cars in the parking lot, not a speck of dirt. And you go into the church, and everybody is perfect. Like, where'd all these perfect people come from? And these magnificent churches. It's not like the Middle Ages where it took generations to build a cathedral. You go to some of these churches, like, man, there's an awful lot of opulence and wealth here. Where do you people get your money? If I know we're supposed to be giving back to the church, but if I had enough money, man, maybe I'd get me one of those cars that sparkles. So that's again, we fight the good fight every day, and sometimes it's God that we're fighting. It's a battle that you cannot win.
Well, I can only imagine what's on my thesis file, considering some of the videos I used to do when I did political interviews. I can only imagine.
Oh, really?
This is our version of like the FBI in the U.S. But it's because I did an expose on George Soros one time, and I got all kinds of flags within 2 hours. I had all kinds of flags on a pile of my videos, and I'm just like, you're kidding me, right? Like, can you be any more obvious?
Wow.
Like, but I don't do political stuff anymore.
Well, in some
God told me to change direction, and I did.
Yeah, well, in some ways, though, like, because I had a pretty traumatic teenage years. Like, my family kind of disintegrated right from under me, and so in some ways, when the authority figures in your life let you down, you kind of become like a sucker for cults. So I'm the kind of person, I spent a lot of time in my late teenage years just like hanging out in downtown Pittsburgh. I just kind of walk around, and so who do you see? You see other people who are basically just walking around rudderless. And so, if there was a street preacher, I'd be the crazy guy who would stand there and listen to the street preacher. If there was, somebody with a sign, protesting something, I was the crazy person who'd go up and listen to their rap. And so when I was a freshman in college, I was telling some of the teaching assistants, I think there was an organization, I forget what they were called, but they were selling a newspaper, and the newspaper had articles like, there are slave camps in Ohio. And I thought to myself, there are no slave camps in Ohio. And I actually called the number to tell them, you people are going too far. What you're trying to accomplish is kind of good, but you're going too far. And I told this, to students who were a little bit older than me, and they said, you shouldn't have done that. Now you're on the list. Like, what? It's like, yeah, organizations like that, they're always out there trying to see who is vulnerable. Now they know you're vulnerable. You're on their list. And someday I'm going to send away from my FBI file, and I'm going to see if that did get me on the list or not.
Yeah, it would be interesting, I think. And what about, you have another album coming out, live at the Mattress Factory, Songs from the Land of Pit Bulls and Poker Machines. What about that album? Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, that came out, we put that out last year, kind of as because the album that did just come out is called Red Beets and Horseradish. And, I mentioned that Undesirables and Anarchists was basically, bam, done. We went in the studio, it was done. But we tried to record the new one, Red Beets and Horseradish, the same way, except I live 300 miles away from the rest of the band, and COVID. So, I would book recording sessions and would have to cancel because they tested positive for COVID or their father had to go to the hospital or something. So the album was taking a long time to record. And, I kind of prayed about it because, I'm a problem solver and a thinker. I think, well, how do I get this album done? And it was just kind of, no plan B. No plan B. Use the people that you planned on using, however long it takes, stay the course. The people who recorded Undesirables and Anarchists need to be the people who record Red Beets and Horseradish. So it was just taking so long. I did a live show with a violin player in the lobby of there's a place in Pittsburgh called the Mattress Factory, which literally used to be a factory that made mattresses, and now is what they call installation art you can get into. Like, you walk into the room and the whole room is the art piece.
That's becoming a lot more popular.
Some of it's just, it's kind of weird, but fun. I mean, I love that stuff. And they're kind of a room that they have on the first floor. The acoustics are so good that you don't even need amplification. So, they gave me permission to do a show there, invited people, and so it was sort of like a hand-picked audience because it was invitation only. And I played the songs and told the stories and had some microphones hung, and that became songs from the land of pit bulls and poker machines, which, if you've ever been on the river towns around Pittsburgh, that's who lives there. Imagine a kid with a tank top shirt, his baseball cap on sideways, his baggy shorts hanging down over his butt, and he has his phone kind of wedged between his shoulder and his ear, one hand pushing a baby stroller, and the other hand walking his pit bull, and he's on the way to the convenience store to buy diapers. And he's arguing on the phone. He's got a cigarette in his mouth, and he's arguing with his girlfriend about why he has to buy the diapers. And that's the people who live in the river towns outside of Pittsburgh. And poker machines, it's just, you're not allowed to tell the truth about things, but all these little bars that have poker machines, they're not there just for amusement only. It's a illegal source of revenue, and it's done with the blessing of the police, and done with sometimes with the investment of the town mayor. So that's where I'm from, the land of pit bulls and poker machines. And
it's always interesting to hear the backstory behind these things.
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. Well, there was a time.
Go ahead.
Where, like, you drive down the street, because Pittsburgh, the city of three rivers. Well, the rivers used to be lined with industry, and across the street from every factory would be bars. Like every street corner would be another bar. And, so when nobody is making any money anymore, what can you do to attract people into your establishment? You can have poker machines, and you can have karaoke nights. That's, it's too expensive to hire a band, but everybody likes to come in and sing karaoke.
Embarrass himself. Yes.
Yeah.
So how would you describe your style of music that you currently play?
Well, you might notice I'm holding a guitar right here. I mean, what I do, I'm like the Three Little Pigs as I work. If I have to build my house out of straw, I build my house out of straw. If I can build my house out of bricks, I'll build it out of bricks. So I have a community of musicians that I'm able to work with. But from an economic standpoint, I make as much money when I play solo as I do when I play with a band. So why not play solo? I get more opportunity that way. Although playing with a band is like a religious experience. It's a powerful thing. So people tell me it's folk rock. I think rock itself if you were like an ethnomusicologist or an anthropologist, you would say rock is a form of folk music. When you think of folk music, you think Peter, Paul, and Mary, and lullaby lilting voices with, songs that elevate the working man and raise consciousness.
Yeah.
Like, who are you to think that your consciousness is any higher than anybody else's? Have some respect for your listener, please. I'm not going to preach to you about anything. I will tell you the stories about things that I know, and maybe you'll relate to them. I believe that you will. If the stories are well told, you'll find a way to connect to them. So, folk rock, in short, 2 words, folk rock. But if you ask me, it's real folk. It's too folk for people who love rock. We're too folk. For people who come for folk music, we're too rock. Whatever we are, we don't fit into anybody's box.
Yeah,
We won an award last year. We were multi-genre group of the year, and that's us.
Yeah, you kind of carved your own path, like you were talking about before.
Yeah. That's
Yeah. So,
yeah.
where can people find you and your music online?
Well, all the streaming services. I get a report every Monday morning. Seems like most people now are accessing our music through Spotify. There's a lot of people find stuff on YouTube, Apple Music. So all the streaming sites, anywhere that you stream music. I wish people didn't stream so much and actually downloaded the music. Which, same thing, you can download it from Apple Music or Google or Amazon or any of those big places. You can actually order physical copies of the CDs through our website. If you go to littlewretches.com, all of our albums are available. You can get a hard copy of any of our albums through that method. We work with a company, I think they might be in California, but you upload the tracks, you upload the art, and you don't have to do a huge run of CDs. You could order one single CD and they will ship it out. So that for indie artists like us, since people aren't buying a whole lot of merchandise these days, that's an economical way to go. So people who want the physical copies can order them. But basically, anywhere you stream. But people, in the old days, you would go to somebody's house and you would flip through their vinyl collection, and you would judge them perhaps based on how good their collection was. And if they had something in their collection that you'd never heard but always wanted to hear, you might ask to hear it. And music was a social experience that brought people together. It was a learning experience for people coming together. Now everybody walks around with their headphones on and their phones running, and it's like a cup of coffee or a cocktail. It's mood regulation instead of a thing that brings people together. So I strongly urge you to be a music. If you're a true music lover, you should have a music collection, and you should invite people over to your house to listen to your collection with you and enjoy your time together. Short answer, you can get it in anywhere. Get our music anywhere. Just look it up on the internet. It'll take you to us.
I have a thick binder full of CDs, but then I also have over 4,000 songs on my computer because I absolutely love music. It's just, I'm very impressed sometimes with just what people can put out. And I listen to all kinds of genres. It's not really any one in particular.
Well, but that's one of the things too that I've found. Just from a marketing standpoint, if you go to an Italian restaurant, you want Italian food. If you go to a Chinese restaurant, you want Chinese food. People want to know what to expect. So if you're too eclectic, which is perhaps a problem of ours, if you're too eclectic, they don't know what to expect. I've had people say, people need to know what kind of clothes to wear. Or should they wear jeans or should they wear blazers? Are they going to smoke cigarettes or, are they going to smoke illegal substances? Are they going to, drink $2 beer or are they going to drink $12 glasses of wine? Like, these are all, you're promoting lifestyle. Like, no, man, we're not promoting lifestyle. Our lifestyle is live free or die. We're not about all that other stuff. We're kind of outside the we're just outside the marketplace in that sense. Um,
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your writing process and how you come up with music? Do you ever acquire music from other people, or do you write everything yourself?
well, I've worked with other songwriters. When I've worked with other songwriters, it's often they have some music and they have a few lyrical lines, but they don't really know where to go with it. And for me, that's liberating because I can have a little bit of fun. I can let my ideas go where they might not ordinarily go. Because if I have to put my individual name on it, I want to be able to stand behind it and say, in some way, this is what I believe, this is what I've seen. I'm speaking from a point of view of reality. But as a writer, I'm one of those people that when I was younger, I always had a notebook. I was kind of a loner, so I was always eavesdropping on conversations, wishing that I was part of the conversation. So in some ways, my writing was my imaginary conversation with the world. And I had a very good ear. I could remember dialogue. I could remember things. I'd sometimes sit down and write verbatim what I had overheard. And a lot of times, I'd be listening to people and thinking, what I just heard was beautiful. And if I don't write it down, it'll be gone forever. I need to write this down. Something, a beauty just happened, and it's my job. I'm the scribe. I had a friend in the faith tell me, Robert, you're a scribe. I was like, okay, I can kind of dig that. I'm our like theme. There's a song by Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground called "I'll Be Your Mirror," and that to me is like our mission statement as artists. I'll be your mirror, reflect what you are, in case you don't know. And if indeed man is God's prize creation, when you look in the mirror, in some ways you're seeing an image of God, perhaps our corrupted image. But you look at yourself not to admire yourself, you look at yourself to see what's really there and perhaps try to improve yourself. So that's kind of our mission statement. And I kind of feel like that's my thing now, is to, it's all reality based, it's all experience based. I do have an imagination, but I'm kind of making composite characters, composite scenes, trying to evoke the peoples whose stories might not be told if I don't tell them, the places that might be forgotten if I don't document them in some with my words. I mean, I'm sure photographers and painters have some of them have their same mission. They're coming at it with different media. I'm working with words and sounds, but and I don't want to be too full of myself. But the ideas come from anywhere. I mean, I've had songs come to me finished. That's now there was a time, especially when I was younger, where I wrote a lot, sometimes hours a day, and any thought that passed through my head ended up in a notebook or through a typewriter or in a word processor. Now that I'm older, I actually spend a lot more time writing letters and writing prose and writing essays that aren't intended for publication. But I'm not as it's not like I sit down to write songs every day. There was a time where I devoted maybe 2 hours a day to writing song lyrics and sitting down trying to come up with something that I hadn't already written, something that is different, something that is part of my thing, but is still has an element of surprise to it. We don't want to be saying the same thing over and over again.
Yep,
We don't
sure.
want to be playing this. So, so for now, you're Canadian, right? So
Yep.
I heard that there was a famous Neil Young's father. At one point, I heard that Neil Young's father was a sports writer who was more famous than Neil Young. And I heard Neil Young talking about, that he learned how to write from his father, and that his father wrote every day. But that Neil Young himself, he no longer wrote every day, but when inspiration came to him, everybody around him knows he drops what he does and he goes to write. When it's time to write, he knows it and he goes and does it, and nothing else. Everything else has to go on hold. And I think I've become a little bit like that. I mean, like, my antenna are out for inspiration, and when it hits, because if you don't heed the call, like if you don't answer the phone, people stop calling you. If God is sending you ideas and you're not taking them, maybe He'll say, okay, he's a disloyal servant. I need to find somebody who will actually take these gifts and do something with them. Don't bury your talent. So that's I'm always got my eyes and ears open. And the other thing, as a songwriter, when I hear other people's stuff, it's almost like a dialogue with me. I'll think to myself, if I had that idea, what would I have done with it? So I'm most impressed by people who have ideas that I would be incapable of having. So, I wish I would have thought of that. And if I would have thought of that, that's exactly what I would have done with it. But a lot of times I'll hear things and then I'll answer it in my head. And I'll think to myself, okay, I know what they're trying to do, but they're doing it all wrong. I can tackle that. So I'm the product of polemicism, I guess. I'm answering somebody else's falsehood with my truth, or, if that's not too much of a conceit.
Yeah, I'd written a song when I was in my early 20s, and then all of a sudden Brad Paisley came out with a song, and I'm like, hey, that's almost exactly like my song. That's weird. Like, it was it was just one of those moments, like, it's like almost the same tune and everything. I'm just like, that's crazy. Like,
Yeah. My dad used to tell me that he heard one of my songs. They were using one of my songs on TV, and he hopes they're paying me for it. I'm like, I don't think so, Dad. And then finally I was over his house one time, and this show came on. That's one of your songs. I heard you playing that in the basement. Like, Dad, that's nothing like one of my songs. No. I wish, but
so
yeah, but writing, you mentioned the writing process. One of the things, I'm a product of the University of Pittsburgh, and they have a pretty strong writing program there. And when I was a student there, they insisted that you take your classes pass-fail. They did not want to give you a letter grade. All they wanted to do was give you feedback, teach you how to give and accept feedback, and then what you do with it is up to you. Because ultimately, you have to be your own critic. Because look, you can take criticism with a grain of salt. You can take praise with a grain of salt. Praise can really be a problem, because there's a good chance that you're being praised for something that was misunderstood. Yeah, they have no idea what you were really trying to put across, and now they're filling your head, and they never even got it. So the question is, you have to kind of know in your heart, what is it that you're trying to say, and then you're kind of reading all the multiple signs out there. Did I get my idea across? And if I didn't, then I got to go back and revise and try again. And there are times, where I have songs that are not necessarily my most popular songs, but I know I nailed it. I know I said something that needed to be said that only I can say, and it's not, if you just want to make people happy, you should go play Beatles songs. If you're trying to move people, it's a much more complicated thing, and a lot of that is just intuitive. You have to learn how to, I don't know. It sounds so religious, but that's what it is.
well, and speaking of religion, what has it
It's
been
a
like
religious
being
thing.
that man of faith in a world of music where it's often very anti-religion?
That's been, well, I let's see if I can
I know it's a loaded question.
say this without stuttering so much. Uh, Having been involved in radical politics when I was in college, one of the things that I realized when I graduated from college is all that rhetoric and all that nonsense that we could say among our peers, you can't say that stuff outside of the campus because it just doesn't fly. People aren't going to hear it. You know, they're going to think you're nuts. Well, I feel like the same thing with the language of faith. I don't want to be pigeonholed. You know, I don't want to be told to go off into my own little religious corner. I don't want to be part of a niche community. I want to be fighting the fight on the real battlefront, you know, so I need to put myself around people who don't necessarily agree with me. I want to be bringing what I have to people who don't already have it and maybe who aren't inclined to hear it. So it's, we're voices crying in the wilderness, so to speak. And so it's not for everybody. I envy. I mean, I have moments of jealousy when I see people that are part of their church music ministry, and they're getting a check to show up at church and to play a couple of the songs on a Sunday morning. Like, man, they give you money for that?
Yeah,
You should
our
be
church
doing.
definitely doesn't.
Oh,
That's all
you shouldn't be
volunteer.
doing that for free, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
Come on, I thought this was a ministry. I thought you're giving back. You're not taking. But there are people who've learned how to make money from their ministry, and to me that's a form of corruption. Then again, that's just me. Perhaps it's just sour grapes on my part. But it's hard because the other thing with us being so off the beaten path, just from a pure economic standpoint, let's say you're a venue owner and you have a chance to book the Little Wretches, and you like the Little Wretches, you like us personally, and you like our music. You want to do business with us and you want to help us, but on a typical night, maybe you make $12,000. But if you book us, you're only going to make $7,000. So, from a business standpoint, you just lost $5,000. You didn't just lose what you paid us. You lose the profit that you didn't earn. So, we're always like the plan B. There was a venue back in Pittsburgh that I really, really wanted to do a show in the month of May, because once summer hits, it's festival season, it's vacation season, it's outdoor season. Yeah. So everybody wants to book us during the summertime when nobody goes to clubs. No. So that's from a business standpoint. It's makes it hard to be sustainable, which is why I have to be good at being able to play solo or in a small. It's not what I set out to do. It's not what I prefer to do. It's just necessary. We're competing. Look, here's somebody selling marijuana. I mean, I'm speaking figuratively here. Basically, people are music as pharmacy. We're in a feel good culture, and what I'm bringing is a different type of feel good, and it might convict you a little bit if you're, we're not. We're bringing a different type of goodness. We're bringing the food that will sustain you, the food of eternal life, the drink of eternal life. It's something different, and I have to be real careful because I don't want to be pigeonholed. I don't want to give people an easy way to dismiss us. But it's, you put a cross on something and all of a sudden it's Christian. It's like putting a shamrock on something and all of a sudden it's Irish. Some of my favorite passages are in the Bible are after the resurrection, when Jesus is walking along and nobody recognizes him. And then later they say, man, that guy was an awful lot like Jesus. Oh, that was Jesus. Like, yeah, a lot of people they don't recognize it, and while it's there. And I wish that we were more embraced formally by the church, but that's just not where we are. It's nice to have a supportive community. A lot of our closest followers are in fact lovers of Christ and devout believers. But we're not a church thing. You know,
So you also mentor
we're
children.
behind enemy lines. Hmm?
You also mentor children, and I would love to hear a little bit more about what you do there with mentoring.
Well, when you're a musician, there you often have to have another source of income to fall back on, because there have been times where I've been able to exist, support myself entirely from performing, from ticket sales and merchandise sales. And then there are times like, oh dang, I run out of money and I have no gigs on the horizon that are going to pay for anything. I can't afford to get my car fixed. Oh, humiliation. I have to get a job. Oh, don't tell anybody. But so at one point I was working, when I was in the university, I I was a liberal arts. I majored in everything, and I'm good at school, so I could always go back and take a couple classes. So when I was young enough to be in school, and any time I had a lull in my career, take a few more classes, allow me to tread water. Right? I wouldn't have to apologize to anybody about being in a band, because it's okay to be in a band when you're in college. But then later, I'd be working. I was working at Carnegie Museums of Pittsburgh, and most of my colleagues were these little old ladies. And you should be teaching at one of those Dead Poet Society schools, And I'm like, well, yeah, I should be, except I'm not really. I don't feel the calling to teach the children of the ruling class. Although I don't want to. Kids are kids, but I went back, took a couple more classes, re-upped my teaching credentials, and got a job working with at-risk kids. Initially those were the jobs that were open. It's not like I set out on the mission to work with that community of kids, but having been from a troubled background myself, a lot of at-risk kids. Why are they at risk? Because there's a very good chance that they're going to get involved in drugs. There's a very good chance that they're going to get involved in violence. Very good chance that they're going to become wards of the state or dependent upon the state long term. That they could be at risk for mental illness and suicide. And a lot of those kids have anger problems, and it's inexplainable. They can't explain why they're angry. There's the saying, birds of a feather flock together. Addicts find other addicts, because who else understands what I'm going through except for other people like me? Even when I was in high school, I always noticed the kids whose fathers had died ended up being friends with each other, like the fatherless kids group. So I just have a natural. You don't have to explain to me why you're upset. If you're upset, I'm sure there's a good reason. I can help you if you want me to help you. I can hang out with you if you just want somebody to hang out with. So I think I have a pretty soft touch. A pretty just natural nurturing tendency around kids. And the bad news about working with kids who are at risk is that since nobody has any magic formula, anytime you have a success, it's like a miracle, because the failure rate is so high. I mean, if I could run down a list of kids that I've known and loved who've been murdered or who are in jail for murder, it's and then you saved my life is a pretty powerful thank you, which people in this field, we get that. Now, it could be that anybody who worked with them, sometimes I feel like, we go out, we stand on the lawn, and the grass grows around us, and we say, oh, look what a great job I did growing this grass. It's like, no, you didn't grow the grass. The grass grows. All it needs is sunlight and water and soil. Best thing we did was not trot upon it and grind it out. So I don't know. I don't want to. I'm pretty sure that I get more out of it than they do. I'm a person who likes to learn. I'm around, I learn a lot from the kids that I work with, and it's like being around, like a baby who's experiencing things for the first time, and you kind of re-experience that this process of discovery with them. So I get more out of it than they do, and to me it's easy. Everybody says it's hard. Like, what's so hard about it? You're hanging out with kids. How,
Yeah.
how hard could that be? Oh, you must have the patience of a saint. Like, well, maybe I do. I don't know. So that's it. The kids, you have to learn. Like from my own background. I mean, one of the things that I wish I had learned from my parents is just how to be happy. My dad was either working or drinking. When he wasn't working, it seemed to me that was the only time he was happy, was when he was working, but he didn't seem to enjoy his work all that much either. The same thing with my mother. My mother was a very hardworking person, but and they would always hit you with the, I sacrificed so much so that you could have this, and I sacrificed so much so you could have that. And I almost be thinking, well, you know what? I'd rather you be happy and not sacrifice so much. I'd rather be around a happy mom and dad than be around all this anger and resentment and feeling like I'm somehow responsible for it. So I don't know. My approach to, like, I also work with kids with autism, and one of the things when you learn how to work with kids with autism, they say, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, because everybody's different.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, well, that's the way it is in
My one nephew has
everything.
autism.
Yeah. You've met one person. You've met one person. Treat them as an individual. Don't put your preconceptions upon them. Don't try to force them to fit into a box. Don't assume that you know the path they should be walking down. And especially if they have trust issues where the adults in their lives have let them down, so they have no reason. In fact, they have good reason to distrust. They have good reason to be skeptical. So honor that. You don't listen to me. I'll be a little bit. You're almost like a lifeguard. My job is to keep you from drowning. You can play in the pool, and if I think you're in danger, I'm going to try to save you. But that's about it. It's like we're a lifeguard, except for instead of being in the pool, we're in the city.
Yeah. So if you could give one piece of advice to a troubled youth out there who is struggling and maybe doesn't know how to get help, what advice would you give them?
Oh my! It's such a cliche. It will get better. To me, it's a question of faith. Everything that you're facing is going to teach you something. You can have and any medicine that can heal you can also kill you. You need to take your experiences. One, don't make things worse. Right? Anything that you've gone through before, you're going to go through again. So you should be thinking about, what can I do next time that will have a better outcome? And don't be afraid to ask for help. We're proud people. We like to be independent, and we like to, once you get angry and defiant, it's me against the world. And it doesn't have to be you against the world. There's people all around you that will help you, and all you have to do is ask.
That's not a sign of weakness.
It's asking for help is not a sign of weakness, and people who will help you everywhere. It does hurt though when you do ask for help, and in the places where you should be able to get it. Say you go to your church and they don't provide, or you go to your teachers and they don't help. It can be discouraging, but if God has you here, God has you here for a reason, and you might not understand till later. A lot of kids that I've known, like, man, if you can make it to the age of 28, You're going to be all right. But till then, there's going to be a lot of confusion and a lot of struggle because the childhood that was stolen from you, you're going to insist on having, which means you're going to screw up a lot. And the times that you fall down, that your dad was supposed to be there to catch you from skinning your knee, no, you're actually going to skin your knee because the authority figure that's supposed to protect you isn't there to protect you. But don't quit. Don't quit. God loves you.
Yes, yes, he does. That's a very important message. So thank you for coming on for the main segment here. We will see you in the after show here, and it's been a real pleasure. Enjoyed talking with you.
Oh, Tony. Well, I hope I said something because you said you wanted to be more of a conversation, and I told you I go on these rants.
That is
So I hope I said something. Yeah. People, if you listened, thank you. God loves you.
Well, I have just been blessed with so many people who are requesting to be on the show, and I'm impressed with how many people want to share their testimonies or what they're doing for the Lord right now. If I haven't got back to you, I promise I will get back to you. I look forward to speaking with each of you and interviewing you, and keep tuning into the show. There's lots of new people that are coming on here, and if you're considering wanting to come on the show, just shoot me an email at tpeters745 at gmail.com, and I will get back to you.